Alright, so 180 days ago, this was me, and this is me now. It's the same person, but a totally different identity. For about 3 years, I was running a business, I was buying fast cars, I was living in my penthouse in Marbella, and I was partying every single weekend. I was taking drugs, drinking, also during the weeks, and I told myself I had it under control, but the truth is, I didn't. This is not going to be a story about health or about sobriety or any of that shit. This is a story about what happens to your mind, your brain, your focus, your business, and to who you become if you stop lying to yourself and if you stop escaping in these kinds of behaviors. So 180 days, here is the honest truth. So the reason why I decided to quit every single substance abuse in my life, like drugs, alcohol, smoking, but basically I just quit everything, and I quit everything cold turkey because I had to. I was living a very lavish lifestyle where I was making a lot of money and where I was very comfortable with making a lot of money, and also feeling very empty. Now, those two things, making a lot of money and feeling very empty, feeling a lack of purpose, don't really go well together, because as a young guy, the only thing that you really want is make money. Once you make the money, you're kind of left there standing like, what the fuck do I do? And a lot of guys, especially for example in the info space, where it's very easy to make a lot of money, and you guys are smart. Like a lot of guys in the info space, I'm surprised by it. There's 22, 23, 24-year-old guys making over 100 grand a month, You guys are fucking good at this content game, but you're not good at dealing with success. You're not good at dealing with the things that come after making a lot of money. You're not good at self-control and discipline and staying consistent, for one thing, and creating values and creating character traits that belong to someone who is focused on long-term growth. So I had the same thing. I had made a lot of money, but I entered a lifestyle of partying, and drugs came into the scene, and women, and I had a fast car, and I was living a very good life for a long time, while I was also still running my business, and money kept coming in. So I didn't really have the idea like, hey, something's off, something's going wrong. So I just kept the lifestyle going because it was something that was comfortable for me, until it wasn't. Because you cannot balance a lifestyle like that, and obviously for one person it might be worse than for another. For me, like, I went fully into those kind of things. I was working during the week, and I was a entrepreneur, and I was a successful guy on paper, and everything looked nice. But what a lot of people didn't see were the after parties at sometimes until like 11 a.m. in the mornings, or sometimes even later, or like the just benders in the weekend, and just waking up on Monday morning feeling like absolute shit, and then just going to work and kind of laughing it off and pretending like, this is the lifestyle, this is cool, this is why we do it. While, if you look back at it now, it's just really pathetic, actually. And it takes so much away from your ability to build your business, to create impact, to create value as well, right? And one of the things that I also always told myself, this is like, you tell yourself lies for the things that you do, right? So your mind is an amazing storyteller, an amazing creator of narratives in order to keep you doing the things that you want to do, and in order to justify the things that you're doing that you deep down know are not really the things that you're supposed to do. I told myself, well, I'm doing a lot of networking, at these parties, and there were some very interesting people there, but it's bullshit. Like, it's bullshit. Like, you can go out with people for sure, and you can have a good time, and there's probably people that say like, I've got some good connections from a good night out, but the truth is that you don't really need that, obviously, to create a good network, right? And that's what I always said. Like, I always made up, your mind makes up stories to do these things. So you will tell yourself, yeah, it's good for networking, it's good to blow off some steam, this and that. But like, when does it stop? Like, if you really need to go and fucking get drunk and take drugs and do all sorts of crazy stuff to like blow off some steam, then you've got a whole nother problem, right? Then you need to fucking focus on that. But the truth is, and I say this with the utmost respect because I lived it, but there is zero benefit to just going out every weekend, getting shit-faced or taking drugs. Zero benefit. And again, we tell ourselves these stories like, it's the work-life balance, this is part of the game, this is what we did it for. But it is all bullshit, and you know it too. You've told yourself these lies as well. You've told yourself these lies waking up on Sunday morning, or knowing that you shouldn't have gone to that party on Saturday night, and then you're standing there with a couple of drinks and you tell yourself, you know what, I've earned it because I've had a hard working week, and I've done a lot of work, and I've put in a lot of time. So for me, it kind of had to end as well, right? Because I was at a point where business was failing eventually, and you need focus, you need clarity, you need to man the fuck up, you need to become the guy that you're really supposed to be. And you know that the best version of you is not going and drinking in the weekend, taking drugs, chasing girls, spending time at afters until 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning. You know that the best version of you doesn't do that, right? So every time that you do do that. It is kind of a withdrawal from the person that you're trying to become. September 2025, I made that decision. I didn't make the decision to stop drinking. I made the decision to completely change my entire life, because I hit rock bottom after making $1 million with my business, almost nearly 2 million, months where we did over 100 grand a month. And from that to completely rock bottom. And I had to change something. And I didn't just, like I said, decided to change the drinking or the drugs or this or that. I decided to completely reinvent every single aspect of my life from the ground up. So here's what nobody really talks about when it comes to getting sober or quitting this lifestyle. And I'm not going to pretend either. It's not easy to do. Like, it wasn't an easy thing for me to do by no means at all, because it wasn't even the physical pull for like, oh, I need a drink or something, but it was more the mental thing like, oh, I'm missing out on fun. Because I had a lot of fun during those nights. And I know that, when you think about these things, it is very attractive to go there and spend time with your friends and just have a laugh. And, there's going to be girls there and it's going to be good music. And you know what it's going to feel like when you've got a couple of drinks in you, when you maybe take a little line in the bathroom, you know what that feeling is going to be like. You know how good that feeling basically is, right? And you know how crazy those nights usually can get in a fun way. So there is a mental aspect to you where you're just like, a Friday night, you can feel that pull because it's always been there. It's like a regular thing. And for me, that was the same. My friends, most of my friends, always went out on Fridays and Saturday nights. So that was kind of the thing. You had a dinner, you go out, order a couple bottles of champagne, and you didn't know where the night was going to end. It was always going to be an adventure. But we did know how the night was going to end, at least I did. So there is this mental aspect to it as well. And that was, for me, the hardest thing as well, because you kind of have to completely change your behavior from, okay, I'm used to going out every weekend, spending money and doing these crazy things, to I'm just going to sit inside, watch a movie now. And, knowing that all my friends are out there, knowing that they are having a blast of a time, and you got to just sit there and not do it, And in the first 2-3 weeks, that was quite hard for me, to be honest. It was like this FOMO that I had. And I guess this is also the point where most people just fail. It's like most people already give up in those first 2 to 3 weeks, because they usually quit one weekend, maybe another, and then it's like, oh, I've already done it once or twice, I can go out this weekend. But you don't understand is that when you do something, when you do this for like 4 weekends in a row, and then the 5th weekend you decide like, I've done it for 4 weekends, let me go out, you basically neglect all the work that you've done before, because you're right back where you started. But let's talk about what happened in these 180 days after. The physical aspect, obviously, it massively impacted my physique. I was able to lose belly fat much faster. I had so much more energy, especially after 2-3 weeks after 3 weeks, I would say, you just feel it. You wake up every day, your testosterone levels fucking skyrocket, I can tell you that. So you are just, you're there. You're fucking, you're on the top of that fucking game. I can tell you that, my friend. Your sleep improves as well, which obviously helps a lot when it comes to like performance in the gym and just feeling high energy. But physically, I completely changed my entire physique. I went from a pretty chubby guy, like you saw in the beginning, to just a fucking lean machine. And also just being able to do so much more throughout the day. I'm able to work much longer hours, just stay focused. When I was drinking in the weekends, if you go out on Saturday and, let's say you're home at like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning and you could just you're drunk, you're hungover for like 1 or 2 days, but then it still sits with you, that lack of sleep and, that hungover that simmers through the next couple days, like from Saturday till Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Wednesday you're like kind of a bit better, and then it becomes Thursday already, and then Friday we're right back where we started, right? So you're in this never-ending cycle. Once you quit all of that, that's when you notice like, holy fucking shit, there is so much energy in me right now, because you break the cycle, because you don't know what you don't know. Like if this is something that you've been used to, if this is something that you've been doing for like a year or maybe 2 years, you have no idea what it feels like on the other side. But when you do, damn, there's such a huge contrast. There's such a huge difference between, the sluggish feeling, the mental fatigue that you had, versus like waking up every single fucking day, just like before the alarm goes. When you wake up with a rock hard one, you get out of bed and you're ready to fucking... And probably one of the biggest benefits that I had when I quit drinking was the fact that I didn't spend time out anymore. So I stopped going out because I didn't want to put myself in environments where I was encouraged for that behavior again, right? Where that attraction was there. So I got my Friday, my Saturday nights back. I got not just my Friday and Saturday nights, but also my Saturday mornings and my Sunday mornings. And with that, without the hangovers, also the Mondays and the Tuesdays, basically. So you gain back so much more time that you can then spend on other things like your business or just chilling down and taking care of yourself instead of just going out recklessly, going blackout drunk and waking up, the next morning feeling like shit. And also for the physical part, if you drink a lot, your face bloats a lot. So my jawline became much more prominent. The skin became much more clear. It's like every single aspect, I can't tell you this enough, every single aspect of your physical health and your physical appearance, it just becomes so much better. But one of the things that really made a big difference is like what happened in my brain and in my business, right? Because let's be honest, if you're an entrepreneur, we all want to look physically well, right? It's more about what can we do in order to make more money, to do more business, to just level up in life in every way that we see fit. Like if you're anything like me right now, at least, then you're ambitious, you're driven, you want to become the best version of yourself. And that is basically the other side of not drinking, not taking drugs, not going out, right? You sacrifice that, but there is something on the other side. When I was still drinking, I was getting things done, obviously, because I was still making money and all that kind of stuff. But I was probably performing on 10 to 15% of what I could actually do. And I mean mainly at like the cognitive capacity level, right? So mental fatigue and all those kind of things, they were like something that I experienced a lot. Even though I pushed through them, it is just still the focus and all those kind of things that really matter when you have big projects going on, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're just trying to fucking build shit. So what I always felt like slightly foggy, slightly fatigued, got tired really quickly, for example, woke up in the mornings also like really tired. So I had to take like a cold shower and just blast myself with caffeine. Otherwise I couldn't really get out of bed or just couldn't wake up, basically. And like I mentioned earlier, now I can easily run 12, 13, 14-hour workdays with really high focus, which massively increases output in the business. And I've noticed this with especially the past couple months where I've just been able to do so much fucking volume, just me by myself, the amount of sheer work that I'm able to get done, just blasting it. The amount of content that I've been posting, the amount of actions that I've been putting into this every single day, and it pays off, you see the results coming in much quicker as well. It's not every day. Like I also obviously still have my days where it's just like, I'm a fucking human being. There is days where it's just a little less, but overall there is just so much more focus, so much more clarity to get things done. Especially just in business as an entrepreneur, negotiating becomes so much sharper, leading your team becomes so much better because you're just on another level, the frequency is just higher. Making decisions becomes so much more easy as well. It's just so much more precise. And the best way that I can describe it is that your brain is really good at all of these things, even when you're like drinking and when you have all of that, but now the system is just clean, it's running on a clean system. There's nothing that's holding it back inside. And that is when you really start to fucking see a difference and it starts to flow. It's like, as an entrepreneur, the most valuable asset that you have is your mind. And you can use your mind in the most optimum way that you can see fit. But when you drink, when you have sleep deprivation, which obviously goes bad with going out and going to bed late and waking up like 4 or 5 hours later, or maybe even taking drugs, all of these things, they compromise that tool, the most valuable asset that you have, your mind. And that brings me to my next point, which is something that no one really talks about when it comes to like breaking vices and quitting your bad habits and shit, which I'm kind of surprised that no one really talks about that. It is not the fact that, it's not the mental part, it's not necessarily even a physical part, but it is something entirely different. It's this. Before, when I was still drinking and going out in the weekends and doing all of these things, I did all of these things, yet at the same time I also proclaimed that I wanted to be the best version of myself. So there was a big gap between what I was preaching and what I was basically doing. That gap costs you more than you think. When there is a gap between who you are now and who you want to be, and you misalign with the things that you do and the things that you say you're going to do, that tarnishes the relationship that you have with yourself, because when you do these things that you can't trust yourself. It doesn't help you become more confident. It doesn't help you become more secure. It doesn't help you become more grounded. It doesn't help you gain respect for yourself. So these are all internal battles that you have when you say one thing and you do another. So the moment that I stopped with all of that behavior, for the first time in a very long time, my words and my behaviors were both pointing into the right direction. And that gave me something which is probably the most valuable thing, and that is just peace. I know it sounds maybe a bit spiritual and stuff, but at the end of the day, we just want to be at peace with who we are. And we don't want to have this internal war with ourselves, right? Well, you do that by aligning your actions and your words. And every day you do the things that align with the best version of yourself that you have pictured in your mind, you know. And here is a very interesting thing. When you change one big thing in your life, like for most people, I would say quitting drinking or partying and going out on the weekends is probably a big change because it's so normal, right? It's something that is just everywhere. If you change that, then it becomes so much easier to do smaller things as well. So it's like a domino piece, right? Once you have the first piece, the rest will actually follow. So when I stopped drinking, when I stopped going out in the weekends, you automatically become a more healthy person. You start to identify as a healthier person. But with identifying as a healthier person, there's also other things that come with that. So I naturally started watching my sleep better, what I was eating, drinking, sunlight, stress levels. I became more focused on creating health in every aspect of my life just by shifting that one perspective. Because my goal wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a health freak, for example. My goal was I'm going to reinvent myself and I'm going to remove these things from my life. But by removing these things from my life, I immediately started adopting a new identity which was more correlated with healthy behavior in general. And that didn't cost me any effort because it was simply something that was rooted in the identity that I had created by just shifting those things. So instead of trying to be healthy, it was just health was a result of the person that I was. Because it's very simple. How you do one thing is how you do everything. What I learned was that when I was drinking in the weekends, every time that I drank alcohol, I took drugs, I was just sending myself a signal of who I was. When I stopped sending that signal, everything else changed naturally because of that. So here's what I will leave you with. I'm not here to tell you that you have a drinking problem. I'm asking you a more simple, honest question. Is the version of you that goes out every weekend and drinks and does all that crazy stuff, is that man really capable of building the life that you say you want to build? Be honest with this, because I wasn't honest. And the day that I started becoming honest with myself is the day that everything changed. So 180 days sober, guys, and a business and a physique that all reflect that same mindset, that same identity. So I would suggest, if you're slightly curious what it can do for you, because my friend, I will promise you that it will change your life. Try 30 days. 30 days of doing the exact opposite of what your old identity would do. All right, guys, this was it for this video. If you want to chat or if you want to see me, what I do on a day-to-day basis, go follow me on Instagram. I'm always active there with stories, reels, and all the shebang, and you can see what I do on a day-to-day basis. I share all of my insights. I share everything about how I'm rebranding and reinventing my entire life from the ground up, how I'm building every single thing in my life to maximize its potential. If you want to see that, give me a follow on Instagram. I'm happy to chat there, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.